The notification sound pulls me out of a dead sleep at 11:47 p.m. I reach for my phone on instinct, squinting against the brightness. My sister's Instagram story. I tap it without thinking. 12 faces grinning around my grandmother's oak dining table, the one I refinished last summer, sanding it down to bare wood on my hands and knees, while everyone else had weekend plans. The caption reads, "Thanksgiving the way it should be. Just us." I sit up slowly. Just us. I scroll back through the story. There's my mother's cornbread dressing in the good ceramic dish I bought 2 years ago when Mom said the old one was chipped. There's the cranberry relish no one makes right except me, the recipe I found in our great-aunt's handwriting inside a Bible at an estate sale. There's the linen tablecloth with the hand-stitched border, the one I drove 40 minutes each way to the dry cleaner twice a year because Mom always said it was too delicate for the washing machine. My name is not in the caption. My face is not in any of the 12 photos. I've organized Thanksgiving for 11 years. I set my phone face down on the nightstand and stare at the ceiling for a long time. It started the November after I turned 22. Mom had just gone back to work full-time following her surgery. Dad's idea of cooking was boiling water for instant oatmeal, and my sister Vanessa was pregnant with her first and said she couldn't be on her feet. Someone had to do it. I volunteered the way I always volunteered, stepping into the gap before anyone had to ask. The first year, I made a 16-pound turkey and burned the rolls. Everyone ate around it and called it charming. The second year, I found my rhythm. By the 5th year, Thanksgiving at my apartment was the event everyone rearranged their schedules for. By the 8th year, it was simply assumed. No one asked. No one confirmed. They just showed up at my door at 2 in the afternoon with wine they'd already opened in the car and left with Tupperware full of leftovers I'd spent a week planning and 2 days executing. I kept a binder, color-coded tabs, dietary restrictions, shopping lists by store, prep timeline by the hour starting Tuesday. My brother-in-law Kyle can't have shellfish. My Aunt Frances takes blood thinners and can't have too much vitamin K, which means I researched every single green vegetable before adding it to any dish. My dad's cholesterol means I substitute where I can without making it obvious because he gets embarrassed when he thinks people are accommodating him. 11 years of that binder. The morning after I see the Instagram story, I go to my hall closet and pull it off the shelf. 11 volumes, one per year, each one thicker than the last. I sit on the kitchen floor in my pajamas and open the most recent one, my handwriting on every page. Grocery totals highlighted in yellow. I'd spent $412 on food alone this past October, buying ahead so I wouldn't feel the hit all at once. I flipped to the tab marked borrowed items because I keep that list too after the year Vanessa borrowed my good roasting pan and returned it scratched. The list for this year's prep reads ceramic serving dish, linen tablecloth, crystal gravy boat, the standing mixer for the mashed potatoes. All items I had boxed and ready on my dining room table for Vanessa to pick up so I could transport them easily. I go to check my dining room table. The boxes are gone. I hadn't noticed. I'd been at work, a 12-hour shift at the hospital where I work as an intake coordinator, and when I came home, I'd gone straight to bed. I hadn't looked at the dining room. I assumed the boxes were still there because I had not been told otherwise. I call Vanessa. It rings 4 times and goes to voicemail. I call my mother. Same. I call my father. He picks up on the 3rd ring, voice muffled like he's eating. "Hey, sweetheart, Dad, where is Thanksgiving?" A pause. The particular quality of that pause, the way it stretches just 1 beat too long, tells me everything before he says a word. "At your mother's this year." "Did nobody tell you?" Another pause. "I thought Vanessa called you." "Nobody called me. Dad." "Oh," he clears his throat. "Well, it was kind of last minute. Your mother wanted to host for once. You know how she's been feeling about the house since the renovation." "It's fine," I say, because I say that. I always say that. "Have a good night." I hang up and look around my apartment. The fall wreath I hung on the door. The little turkey centerpiece on the coffee table, a ceramic one I've had since college. The half-prepped kitchen where I'd already started the cranberry relish 2 nights ago because it needs time to develop. The jars of it are in my refrigerator right now, labeled with masking tape in my own handwriting. My mother wanted to host for once. Using my tablecloth, my serving dish, my recipes. I open my phone and look at Vanessa's Instagram story again. In the background of one photo, almost out of frame, I can see the corner of my grandmother's handwritten recipe card propped up on the counter. The one for sweet potato casserole. The one I laminated 3 years ago because the paper was getting soft at the folds. I put my phone in my pocket and stand up very straight in the middle of my kitchen. I'm 29 years old. I have spent 11 Thanksgivings making sure everyone else had a holiday worth remembering. I have never once spent Thanksgiving the way I wanted to spend it. I open my laptop. The Amtrak to Savannah leaves at 6:15 in the morning. I book a seat in the quiet car. I find a bed and breakfast in the historic district with a room available starting Thanksgiving morning. The owner's website has photos of a porch with rocking chairs and Spanish moss in the background, and a small line at the bottom that reads, "Thanksgiving breakfast served family style in the main dining room. Strangers welcome." I book it. I do not let myself second guess. My phone buzzes. Vanessa texting the family group chat. "Dessert is ready, who wants pie?" I turn the notification off and go pack a bag. The train station at 6 in the morning smells like burnt coffee and floor wax. I find my seat in the quiet car, put my bag in the overhead rack, and sit down next to the window with my hands folded in my lap. I have not brought the binder. I thought about it, almost put it in the bag out of habit, and then deliberately put it back on the shelf. The train moves. The city slides away outside the glass, gray and pre-dawn, giving way to bare trees and pale fields as the sun comes up. Traveling alone for the holiday? The woman across the aisle is maybe 60, wearing a red wool coat and reading a paperback with a cracked spine. She doesn't look up when she asks it, which takes the pressure off. "Yes," I say. "First time." She turns a page. "I did it the first time at 34. Took the train to New Orleans by myself for Christmas. Thought I'd hate it." She finally looks up, and her eyes are kind. "Best week of my life up to that point." "What changed?" "Nothing changed. I changed." She goes back to her book. "You pick somewhere good?" "Savannah." "Oh, that'll do it." She almost smiles. "That'll do it just fine." The bed and breakfast is on a side street lined with live oaks, the branches crossing overhead so the road looks like a tunnel. I check in at 9:30 in the morning, dragging my bag up 3 porch steps, while the owner, a compact woman named Miss Harriet with silver braids pinned up under a headscarf, holds the door open and tells me I made good time. "You're in the garden room. 2nd floor, south-facing window. Best light in the house." She hands me a key with a brass tag shaped like a magnolia. Breakfast was at 9, but I kept a plate. Come eat before you do anything else. I sit at a long wooden table in the dining room with a plate of biscuits and gravy and scrambled eggs and a small glass of apple cider. There are 2 other guests, a couple from Ohio who are here visiting their daughter, and a man about my age who introduces himself as Felix and explains that he is a landscape architect who likes to spend major holidays somewhere he's never been before. "Every year?" I ask. 5 years running." He cuts his biscuit in half. "People think it's sad, I think it's research." Miss Harriet comes in from the kitchen. "You all doing the walking tour today?" The group leaves from the fountain at 11. I hadn't planned anything. The freedom of that, having no plan, feels genuinely unfamiliar. "I'll do the tour," I say. My phone catches up with me around noon. I'd left it in my coat pocket during the tour, and when I check it outside a coffee shop, there are 14 messages. The family group chat, mostly. A slow-building confusion that started around 11, when someone presumably set a place for me at the table and found me missing. "Where are you?" from Vanessa. "Your mother is upset." From my father, which I note is in a third person, as if he has already made a calculation about which side of this he's on. "We have your chair out. Are you coming?" From my Aunt Frances. And then, an hour later, escalating, "This is really hurtful." From Vanessa. "I don't understand what's happening." From my mother. "Kyle says you might have had to work, but you would have told us if you had to work." From Vanessa again. As if Kyle's reasoning about my schedule is a relevant data point. I read all of them once. Then I open a new message and type, "I'm well and safe. I've decided to have Thanksgiving somewhere different this year. Enjoy the meal." I send it to the group chat and then, before I can talk myself out of it, put my phone in my bag and walk into the coffee shop. The barista has a tiny turkey pin on his apron. He makes me a cortado, and when I tell him the foam pattern looks like a leaf, he grins and says he's been practicing since October. I sit at a small table by the window and drink my coffee and watch people walk by on the street. Families with small children. Couples walking dogs. Two older women in matching orange coats sharing a pastry bag. I realize I am not performing anything for anyone right now. There is no one waiting for me to bring out the next dish. No one needs more ice, or a serving spoon, or a reminder about where I put the backup napkins. I finish my coffee and order another one. The afternoon opens up the way afternoons rarely do when you're responsible for making them good for other people. I walk along the river. I go into an antique shop and spend 40 minutes looking at old maps. The owner tells me about a papermaking studio down the street, and I find it and spend another 30 minutes watching a woman pull sheets by hand from a wooden frame. Late in the afternoon, sitting on a bench near one of the squares, I call my grandmother. She is the one person in my family I trust to be honest with me in both directions. She answers on the second ring. I wondered when you'd call. You knew? I heard your mother planning it in September. I told her she should call you. A pause. She said you'd be fine with it? I don't say anything for a moment. A horse-drawn carriage goes by on the street in front of me. The horse's hooves loud on the cobblestones. Grandma, does she actually think that, or does she just say that because it's always been true? My grandmother is quiet long enough that I know she's thinking carefully. I think, she says slowly, that the two of those things stopped being different a long time ago, because you never pushed back. No, I say, I didn't. Where are you, Savannah? She laughs, a real laugh, low and satisfied. Good girl. Dinner is at a restaurant on the river that does a Thanksgiving prix-fixie. Miss Harriet recommended it and called ahead. I get a table by the window with a view of the water and order the full menu because it is Thanksgiving, and I have never once in 11 years sat at a Thanksgiving table and eaten without jumping up 6 times. The server brings amuse-bouches. I eat them all. I don't jump up. At the table next to me, a group of about 8 people are clearly strangers who have found each other over the course of the holiday weekend, trading stories and laughing at things that must be callbacks to earlier in the day. A woman about my age catches my eye and raises her glass, and I raise mine, and neither of us says anything, and it's enough. My phone buzzes. Vanessa, you're really not coming, Mom cried. I set the phone face down and eat my soup. There is a pecan tart for dessert. I think about the fact that for 11 years I made a full pie from scratch because Kyle mentioned offhandedly in year 2 that his grandmother used to make pecan pie, and I filed it away and added it to the menu and made it every single year without him ever once saying thank you specifically for that. I eat the whole tart. I wake up the next morning to a message from my grandmother sent at some point in the night. I told your mother some things this evening that were long overdue. The cassette recording of you at age 6 saying, "I'll take care of it, Grandma, don't worry," has been living in my memory for 23 years, and I finally said it out loud to the people who needed to hear it. Sleep well, my love. I read it 3 times. Then I get dressed, pin my grandmother's small garnet brooch, the one she gave me 2 birthdays ago with no explanation except it suits you, to the lapel of my jacket, and go down for breakfast. Miss Harriet has biscuits again. Felix is at the table, and he tells me he found a bookshop yesterday that had an entire room of botanical illustration prints, and he bought 4 of them and is now trying to figure out how to get them home. Did you have a good first solo holiday? He asks. I didn't burn anything, I say, which makes Miss Harriet laugh from the kitchen. I spend the day slower and quieter than yesterday. I find the bookshop Felix mentioned and buy a paperback novel and a small illustrated guide to the coastal Georgia lowlands. I eat lunch alone at a counter seat in a diner and read my book while the owner plays a radio station doing all Motown all morning. I walk to the cathedral and sit in a pew in the cool dim air and feel the specific silence of old buildings for half an hour. In the late afternoon, my phone buzzes with a call from my mother. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answer. I don't understand why you didn't just tell us, she says, before I can speak. Her voice is controlled, which means she's been rehearsing. If you were upset, you could have said something. I texted the group chat 2 weeks ago asking about the plan. No one responded. Silence. That's not. She stops. I didn't see that. 7 people saw it, Mom. The read receipts were there. Another silence, longer. I didn't know you did as much as you do. Her voice shifts slightly, not quite to sorry, but in that direction. Your sister said, When we were doing everything yesterday, she said she didn't realize that you had a binder. I've had a binder for 9 years. We didn't know. I know you didn't know, I say. That's actually the problem. I can hear her breathing. Outside my window, the square is going golden in the late light, a few dog walkers crossing through it. I'm not trying to punish anyone, I say, because I want to say it before she can accuse me of it. I just needed to be somewhere that wasn't about managing everyone else's experience. I haven't had a Thanksgiving for myself in 11 years. You never said. No, I didn't. I pause. I'm saying it now. She doesn't respond right away. When she does, her voice is quieter. Are you all right? Yes, I'm really good, actually. Okay. A pause. What's it like there? And that, surprisingly, is how we talk for 20 more minutes. My mother asking questions about Savannah and me answering them, both of us circling the real conversation without quite having it yet. It is the most genuine exchange I can remember having with her in years. My last morning in Savannah, I am eating breakfast when Miss Harriet sets a small wrapped package next to my orange juice. From the room, she says, which doesn't explain anything. Inside is a small card printed with the Bed and Breakfast's Magnolia logo and a handwritten note. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't showing up. It's finally sitting down. Come back soon. T-Mac-2H. Tucked beneath the card is a packet of the house biscuit mix, sealed with a gold sticker. I don't cry, but it's close. My apartment looks different when I come home. The way places always look slightly unfamiliar after you've been away. And then you realize the unfamiliarity is just you seeing clearly. The fall wreath is still on the door. The ceramic turkey is still on the coffee table. The cranberry relish is still in the refrigerator, still perfectly good. I unpack my bag. I pin the garnet brooch to the corkboard above my desk where I'll see it. 2 days later, I text Vanessa. I want to talk, not about blame, but about what things look like going forward. Can you come over Thursday evening? She responds in 4 minutes. Yes, I'll bring wine. She shows up Thursday with wine and also Kyle, which I hadn't asked for but accept. And she sits on my couch with her hands wrapped around her glass and says, "The gravy lumped. I didn't know you always strain it. I've been straining it for 6 years," I say. I didn't know. She looks genuinely bothered by this. I watched you do it every year. I guess I didn't pay attention the right way. Kyle says the turkey was also dry. And Vanessa shoots him a look and he says, "I'm just saying it was very dry." I baste every 45 minutes, I say. He nods gravely. That tracks. My mother arrives 20 minutes after that, unannounced, which is a habit I'm going to address separately. She sits in the armchair and folds her hands and says, "I want to understand what we've been doing wrong. Your grandmother." She pauses. "Your grandmother had some things to say." I know, she told me. She showed me a voicemail you left her. From 3 years ago, the day after Thanksgiving. My mother's voice is careful. You were crying. You said you were tired and you didn't know how to ask for help. I remember that voicemail. I pulled over on the way home from buying post-holiday groceries for everyone because they'd gone through everything, and I called my grandmother just to have somewhere to put it. Yes, I say. I didn't know that was happening. I know, Mom. Why didn't you tell me? I think about how to answer this honestly because you always said I was the strong one. And I thought that was a compliment for a really long time. She looks like she's been struck lightly across the face. Oh. It's not blame, it's just what happened. I pull the binder off the shelf, the current year's volume. I set it on the coffee table. This is what 1 year of Thanksgiving looks like from where I'm standing. You don't have to read the whole thing, just look at the tabs. My mother opens the binder and looks at the tabs for a long time without speaking. Then she closes it carefully and sets it back on the coffee table with both hands, the way you'd set down something old and fragile. "Tell us what you need," she says. Things didn't change overnight. That's not how families work. There were arguments I hadn't anticipated and apologies that came out sideways and a period in January and February where I didn't go to Sunday dinners and everyone respected it without fully understanding it, which was its own kind of progress. But something had shifted in the weight of things. The way weight shifts when you've been carrying something for so long you forgot you were carrying it, and then you put it down and feel the phantom heaviness of it for weeks before your shoulders finally unknot. The following Thanksgiving, Vanessa hosted. She asked me for the binder in July. She called me in September to ask about timing the sides, and I walked her through it over the phone while I made myself dinner, and at the end of the call she said, "This is genuinely a lot of work," in a voice that landed differently than anything she'd said to me in years. "Yes," I said, "it is. Do you want to come early and help, or come at noon like everyone else?" I thought about it. Noon. Like everyone else. Okay, a pause. Bring the cranberry relish. I'll bring the cranberry relish because I want to, I said, not because it's expected. Right. Yes, okay. Okay, because you want to. I arrived at noon. My grandmother was already there, sitting in the best chair by the window with a glass of sparkling cider, wearing her brooch. When she saw me, she held out a hand, and when I took it, she said quietly, close to my ear, "The table looks different when you're sitting at it." She was right. It did. Vanessa's gravy was a little thin. My father brought store-bought rolls without apology. My Aunt Frances forgot the green beans were still in her car and we ate without them, and no one mentioned it except Kyle, who said, "What happened to green beans?" And everyone ignored him, which was its own kind of development. I ate until I was full and then I stopped. I didn't think once about whether there was enough. I didn't do a silent inventory of the dishes or calculate whether we needed more ice. I sat in my chair and had a second glass of wine and listened to my nephew argue with his brother about something neither of them could adequately explain. After dinner, while everyone was in the living room, I stood at the kitchen sink for a moment, looking out the window at Vanessa's backyard, bare trees and the last of the November light going out of the sky. My mother came in and stood beside me. She picked up a dish towel. "I've been thinking," she said, "about that voicemail to Grandma. The one from 3 years ago." "Mom, you don't have to. Let me finish." She dried a serving spoon slowly. "I've been thinking about the fact that when I had my surgery and I couldn't do things for a while, you stepped in before anyone asked. You were 22. And I was so grateful. And I never thought about what I was asking you to carry in exchange." "You didn't ask," I said. "That's the part that keeps me up," she said. "I didn't ask. I just accepted." I looked at her profile, her hands on the dish towel, and thought about how much of who I am was built in the space of what she needed me to be. How you can love someone completely and still do a harm without meaning to. "We're figuring it out," I said. "That's enough." She put the towel down and hugged me properly, the way she used to when I was small and the world was simple. I let myself lean into it for a moment without checking whether anyone needed anything. The kitchen was warm, the window was dark. Inside the living room, my family was arguing cheerfully about something that didn't require me. That was enough. That was more than enough. The greatest gift I gave myself that November wasn't the train ticket, or the quiet morning in Savannah, or even the biscuit mix from Miss Harriet that I made the following Sunday in my own kitchen, with no one to share it but myself. Though I was grateful for all of those things, it was the understanding that love doesn't have to be load-bearing, that I could belong to my family without being the thing that held them up, that the table would still stand if I sat down at it. I've sat down at it every year since. For 11 years, I gave everything I had to a table that never once asked how I was doing. I color-coded binders. I memorized every dietary restriction, every preference, every unspoken expectation. I basted the turkey every 45 minutes. I strained the gravy. I drove 40 minutes each way to a dry cleaner twice a year for a tablecloth that didn't belong to the hands that ironed it. And I did all of it quietly, without complaint, because somewhere along the way I had decided that being needed was the same thing as being loved. That's the part no one tells you. When you make yourself indispensable, people stop seeing the person doing the work and start seeing the function. You become the role, and the role, the one who holds everything together, the one who never drops anything, the one who figures it out. That role doesn't get a seat at the table. It sets the table and then stands in the kitchen waiting to see if anyone needs anything else. What happened to me didn't happen because my family was cruel. It happened because I let it happen for 11 years without ever saying, "This is what this costs me." Actions accumulate. Silence is a kind of permission. When I never pushed back, when I never named what I needed, I taught the people around me that I didn't need anything. And they believed me, not out of malice, but because it was easier to believe me than to ask. That is the cause. The effect was an Instagram photo and 12 people at my grandmother's table and my name not in the caption. What I did next, the train ticket, the rocking chair porch, the cortado at a coffee shop where no one needed me to do anything, that wasn't running away. That was the first honest thing I'd done in over a decade. It took courage I didn't know I had, because the hardest boundaries to draw are not the ones against people who are trying to hurt you. They're the ones against people you love, people whose comfort has become your responsibility, people who would be genuinely surprised to learn you were struggling. Intelligence isn't only about solving the problem in front of you. It's about being honest enough to name the real problem in the first place. For 11 years, I was very good at solving logistics. I was not honest enough to name what the logistics were costing me. My grandmother saw it before I did. Sheep kept a voicemail I barely remembered leaving. 3 years of evidence that I was tired in a way I hadn't said out loud to the people who needed to hear it. That is what wisdom looks like from the outside. Someone who watches and waits and knows when to hand you a brooch and say nothing except good girl. Vanessa's gravy was thin. My father brought store-bought rolls. The green beans never made it inside, and somehow Thanksgiving happened anyway, imperfect and collaborative and real in a way it hadn't been in years. That is what I had been protecting everyone from, the chance to figure it out. When you carry everything, you rob the people you love of the opportunity to grow. That's not generosity. That's control dressed up as sacrifice. I sat down at the table still stood. That was the whole lesson. Love doesn't have to be load-bearing to be real, and you are allowed to put down what was never yours to carry alone.